On this beautiful day, we want to greet everyone with a good morning in the peace of our Lord and Savior Jesus. I hope you have been doing well. We are happy to be with you. Continuing our study on the nation of Israel from its beginnings with Abraham to the present day, today we will be talking about Jacob in the third part of this topic. I am Fremund Habitsreuter, but we will be using an artificial voice. The story of Jacob. Jacob is one of the most important figures in the Old Testament. However, his story is still not well known by many believers. That is why we want to explore his life and the events that led him to become one of the patriarchs of the people of Israel. Jacob was a man who needed to be shaped by God in his character because, in his youth, he lived up to his name, supplanter. For this reason, even though he had a genuine zeal to receive God's blessings, it was necessary for God to transform him and make him a true man of God. The same happens with us. Many times we want God's blessings, but we do not want a change in our lives. We say that we already know and accept Jesus, but our way of living does not reflect that, as we continue to lie, refuse to forgive, and make many other mistakes. However, to have access to God's blessings, we need to change our lives. May the Lord help each of us. Jacob was the younger twin son of Isaac and Rebekah. He is one of the three patriarchs of the Jewish people, alongside his father, Isaac, and Abraham. The descendants of Jacob formed the 12 tribes of Israel. The meaning of the name Jacob. The Bible tells us that Jacob was born holding onto the heel, from Hebrew akeb, of his older twin brother, Esau. That is where the name Jacob comes from, derived from the Hebrew Yaakov, which means he who grasps or he who takes hold. Because of this event and a variation of the Hebrew noun meaning heel, the name Jacob is often translated as heel catcher or supplanter, derived from the idea of overcoming or subduing someone by the heel. Jacob, the heir of the promise. God had promised Abraham that through his son, Isaac, he would make him into a great nation. Despite the difficulties Isaac and Rebekah had in conceiving children, God's promise was not thwarted. At the right time, the couple had children. With the birth of Isaac's sons, God's promise was renewed. Esau was the firstborn twin, so naturally, it was expected that he would be the heir of God's promise to his parents. However, even before the birth of Esau and Jacob, God, in his sovereign and infallible will, had already determined that Jacob would inherit the promise. Jacob, the birthright, and Isaac's blessing. In the ancient Near East, the firstborn son usually inherited at least 2/3 of his father's possessions. Additionally, he received a series of privileges, including the position of social and religious leader of the family. Taking advantage of his brother Esau's hunger when he had just returned from the field, Jacob bought Esau's birthright, demanding an oath from him that was considered irrevocable. Archaeological discoveries confirm that, at that time in Mesopotamia, it was possible to negotiate birthrights. It is not known whether, in the case of Esau and Jacob, there was any official bureaucratic registration of this negotiation. However, the Bible mentions that an oath was made, and in many cases such an oath was valid before a court. When Isaac was old, he announced that he would pass on his patriarchal blessing. He asked Esau to prepare his favorite meal. Genesis 27 verses 1-4. 1. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, "My son." And he answered, "Here I am." 2. Then he said, "I am now old and do not know the day of my death." 3. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver and bow, go out to the field, and hunt some wild game for me. For prepare for me the kind of tasty food I love, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may give you my blessing before I die. Esau obeyed, but while he was in the field, Rebekah instructed Jacob on how to act to take this blessing for himself. Taking advantage of his father's blindness, Jacob disguised himself as his brother Esau and received Isaac's blessing. Genesis 27 verses 15-29. 15. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of her older son Esau, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. 16. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goatskins. 17. Then she handed to her son Jacob the tasty food and the bread she had made. 18. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes, my son," he answered. "Who are you?" 19. Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. May 28th God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May 29th nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." Esau's surprise. Genesis 27 verses 30 to 37. 30. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. 31. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." 32. His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." 33. Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it, then, that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." 34. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." 35. But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." 37. Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do?" When Isaac and Esau found out what had happened, nothing more could be done. The blessing over Jacob's life was irrevocable. Jacob and the deceptions of his father-in-law Laban. Esau became furious when he discovered that he had lost his father's blessing. To escape his brother's wrath, Jacob went to his relatives in Haran. During his journey, Jacob had a vision. In this vision, God confirmed the promise made to Abraham and assured Jacob that he would protect him, and that all the families of the earth would be blessed through him and his descendants. Thus, the blessing given by God to Abraham passed to Isaac, Jacob, and his seed. Genesis 28 verses 13 to 14. 13. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. 14. Your descendants shall be as numerous as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed through you and your descendants." When Jacob arrived in Haran, he met his cousin Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Laban. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel and made an agreement with Laban that after 7 years of work, he could take her as his wife. The wedding took place, but Laban deceived Jacob. Claiming a local tradition, Laban gave him his older daughter Leah as his wife. Jacob had to make a new agreement with Laban to finally marry Rachel. This new agreement required another 7 years of work. God changes Jacob's name to Israel after many years of working for his father-in-law and building up a large flock. Jacob decided to return to Canaan. Laban did not want him to leave and proposed a new agreement to keep him. In an attempt to take advantage of Jacob, Laban changed the terms of the agreement 10 times. Genesis 31 verse 7. "Your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God has not allowed him to harm me." Finally, Jacob managed to escape. When Laban found out about Jacob's flight, he pursued him. However, after a long conversation, they made a covenant, and Jacob was able to continue his journey south. On the way, he encountered a group of angels who assured him of God's protection. Genesis 32 verses 1 to 2. 1. And Jacob went on his way, and angels of God met him. 2. When he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's camp," and he called the place Mahanaim. On his way to meet his brother Esau, as he passed the Jabbok River, Jacob encountered a man and wrestled with him throughout the night. At dawn, the man touched Jacob's hip and dislocated it, but Jacob still managed to be blessed. This blessing changed his name from Jacob to Israel, which means one who wrestles with God. Genesis 32 verses 24 to 30. 24 Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the dawn. 25 When the man saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, and it was dislocated as he wrestled with him. 26 Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." 27 And the man asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." 28 Then the man said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have wrestled with God and with men and have prevailed." Later, God appeared to Jacob again and confirmed the change of his name. Genesis 35 verses 9 to 10. 9 God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Paddan Aram, and blessed him. 10 And God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you shall not be called Jacob anymore, Israel shall be your name." Shortly after this event, Jacob finally met Esau again. Despite the previous tensions, the brothers reconciled, and everything ended in peace. Jacob's sons while living with his father-in-law Laban. Jacob had 11 sons and 1 daughter. These children were born from his 2 wives and their maidservants. Jacob's sons, also known as the 12 patriarchs, are key figures in the biblical history of Israel. Their names are Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. Each of these 12 sons became the founder of one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the chosen people of God, through whom the promised Messiah would come. Jacob's final years, the following years, were not easy for Jacob. His sons Simeon and Levi got into a conflict with the inhabitants of Shechem over Dinah. Additionally, Deborah, Rachel's nurse, died. Shortly after, Rachel died during the birth of Benjamin. His son Reuben dishonored him by sleeping with Bilhah, his concubine. Finally, his beloved son Joseph was sold into slavery. When Jacob was old, a great famine struck the region. Jacob and his family went to Egypt, where he had the joy of reuniting with Joseph. In Egypt, he was well received and lived the last years of his life. Genesis 47 verse 28. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. Before he died, Jacob blessed Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and then his own sons, thus officially forming the 12 tribes of Israel. Jacob died and was buried in the cave of Machpelah, alongside Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, and Leah. Jacob in the New Testament. Jacob is mentioned in the genealogies of Matthew and Luke as one of the patriarchs of the people of Israel. Matthew 1 verse 2. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Luke 3 verse 34. Son of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham. Jesus also mentioned Jacob when referring to God as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, to emphasize that God is the God of the living and not of the dead. Matthew 22 verse 32. I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Luke 20 verse 37. But that the dead are raised, even Moses showed, when he called the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob at the burning bush. This expression also appears in the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 7, verse 32, where it says, I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses trembled and dared not look. The Apostle Paul refers to Jacob twice. Romans, chapter 9, verse 13, as it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. Romans, chapter 11, verse 26. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, "The deliverer will come from Zion, who will turn away ungodliness from Jacob." Finally, in the epistle to the Hebrews, Jacob appears in the Hall of Faith Heroes, Hebrews, chapter 11, verses 9 and 20. 9 By faith, Sarah herself also, though she was barren, received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. 10 Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the innumerable sand by the seashore. 11 These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. 12 For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. 13 And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from which they came out, they might have had opportunity to return. 14 But now they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. 15 By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, 16 Of whom it was said, that in Isaac shall your seed be called. 17 Accounting that God was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received him in a figure. 18 By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. I hope that the study of Jacob's life has been a blessing, and that we can learn more from this character, who left us so many beautiful examples. Normally, we only look at the negative aspects, but God allowed all this to be written so that we can see that all the men in the Bible also made mistakes, and through that, we learn that when we err and ask for forgiveness, there is also forgiveness for us. I wish you all God's richest blessings.